how bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. Sexuality is the key to the problem of the psychoneuroses and of the neuroses in general. No one who disdains the key will ever be able to unlock the door. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Just as no one can be forced into belief, so no one can be forced into unbelief. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is, what does a woman want? He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. The intention that man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. He does not believe that does not live according to his belief. When making a decision of minor importance, I have always found it advantageous to consider all the pros and cons. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. In the depths of my heart, I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. It is that we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Experience teaches us that the world is not a nursery. Future ages will produce further great advances in this realm of culture, probably inconceivable now, and will increase man's likeness to a God still more. Life as we find it is too hard for us. It brings us too many pains, disappointments, and impossible tasks. Religion is an attempt to get control over the sensory world in which we are placed by means of the wish world which we have developed inside us as a result of biological and psychological necessities. Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me. Religion is a system of wishful illusions, together with a disavowal of reality. It is impossible to escape the impression that people commonly use false standards of measurement. The pleasure of satisfying a savage instinct, undomesticated by the ego, is incomparably much more intense than the one of satisfying a tamed instinct. Originally, the ego includes everything. Later, it detaches from itself the external world. The functional importance of the ego is manifested in the fact that normally control over the approaches to motility devolves upon it. Analysis does not set out to make pathological reactions impossible, but to give the patient's ego freedom to decide one way or another. Neurosis is the result of a conflict between the ego and its ID. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. Children are completely egoistic. They feel their needs intensely and strive ruthlessly to satisfy them. Words are capable of arousing the strongest emotions, and prompting all men's actions. At the height of being in love, the boundary between ego and object threatens to melt away. The ego represents what we call reason and sanity, in contrast to the ID, which contains the passions. In mourning, it is the world which has become poor and empty. In melancholia, it is the ego itself. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other, and to a greater or lesser extent. The repressed merges into the ID as well and is merely a part of it. Towards the outside, at any rate, the ego seems to maintain clear and sharp lines of demarcation. It is easy to see that the ego is that part of the ID which has been modified by the direct influence of the external world. The poor ego has a still harder time of it. It has to serve 3 harsh masters, and it has to do its best to reconcile the claims and demands of all 3. One might compare the relation of the ego to the ID with that between a rider and his horse. Where ID was, there ego shall be. Neurotics complain of their illness, but they make the most of it. And when it comes to taking it away from them, they will defend it like a lioness her young. The ego refuses to be distressed by the provocations of reality, to let itself be compelled to suffer. The ego is not master in its own house. There is no doubt that the resistance of the conscious and unconscious ego operates under the sway of the pleasure principle. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. If youth knew, if age could. Dreams are often most profound when they seem the most crazy. If we subject the content of the dream to analysis, we become aware that the dream fear is no more justified by the dream content than the fear in a phobia is justified by the idea upon which the phobia depends. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. America is the most grandiose experiment the world has seen, but I am afraid it is not going to be a success. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. Dreams tell us many an unpleasant biological truth about ourselves, and only very free minds can thrive on such a diet. Immorality, no less than morality, has at all times found support in religion. Dreams may be thus stated: they are concealed realizations of repressed desires. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. The doctor should be opaque to his patients, and like a mirror should show them nothing but what is shown to him. The dream is a sort of substitution for those emotional and intellectual trains of thought. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. One thing about human beings puzzles me the most is their conscious effort to be connected with the object of their affection, even if it kills them slowly within. When inspiration does not come to me, I go halfway to meet it. Friendship is an art of keeping distance, while love is an art of intimacy. Dreams with a painful content are to be analyzed as the fulfillments of wishes. The goal of all life is death. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Beauty has no obvious use, nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it, yet civilization could not do without it. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. Religion is an illusion, and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. A certain degree of neurosis is of inestimable value as a drive, especially to a psychologist. Flowers are restful to look at. They have neither emotions nor conflicts. No, our science is no illusion. But an illusion it would be to suppose that what science cannot give us, we can get elsewhere. The scope of one's personality is defined by the magnitude of that problem which is capable of driving a person out of his wits. Before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, make sure that you're not surrounded by fools. Love and work. Work and love. That's all there is. I have found little that is good about human beings on the whole. What a distressing contrast there is between the radiant intelligence of the child and the feeble mentality of the average adult. We choose not randomly each other. We meet only those who already exists in our subconscious. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. The ideas so far produced are insufficient for the interpretation of the dream. No one who, like me, conjures up the most evil of those half-tamed demons that inhabit the human breast and seeks to wrestle with them can expect to come through the struggle unscathed. Self-deception is a plant which withers fast in the pellucid atmosphere of dream investigation. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. In the small matters, trust the mind. In the large ones, the heart. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Dream disfigurement, then, turns out in reality to be an act of the censor.